our staff since our last report. So we now only have one vacancy in Children's Protective Services, though we still have 3 vacancies in foster care. In our assistance payments areas, we do not have any vacancies, and we are just getting ready to post a vacancy for our clerical staff as we had one person be promoted. So I'm a little bit excited about that because we can send that information out to our community and hope to get some applicants from within our community. We continue to work on recruitment efforts for our foster parents, our licensed foster parents. This year we had a goal of 25. So each county office is sent a goal of number of foster parents. And 25 is a pretty high goal for us, but we had previously been able to meet our goals. This year we will not meet that goal of 25, which is really just something that helps us in our day-to-day work. Our goal for next year is a little bit lower at 13, and we don't think we'll have any problems meeting that goal. Really, the overall desire is to just be able to have the right foster home for specific children who might have different types of needs. We continue to focus on homes for our older youth, as I've mentioned time and time again. As kids are older, they've had lots more years of potentially traumatic experiences, which can make it harder to find foster homes for those youth. And finding people who want to take teenagers into their home is a little bit more difficult as well. So we do continue to speak about this in the community and look for those families who are looking for older kids. And then also large sibling groups. So oftentimes when children are removed, there are 3, 4, or 5 kids in the family, and we really would like to keep them all together in one home whenever possible. And then finally, recruiting for homes of color. So we have about 35% of our youth in foster care are children of color, primarily Black or mixed race, Black and white. And we have very few homes of color. And so being able to put children in homes where they feel comfortable because they look the same and might have some of the same cultural and ethnic values and experiences is something that we hope to do as well. And then I just also wanted to mention a new residential place here in Jackson called My Place. They've been open, gosh, for over a year now, but they're a supervised independent living home for young women who are learning new skills so that when they become adults and even a little bit older, so 18, 19, 20, they have some of the skills that they need to be able to work and pay rent and pay bills and things of that nature. The support and staff at My Place has been really positive for our youth. So we've had a couple of youth who have not done well in other settings that we've placed them in, but they have gotten to My Place and gotten just the right support that they need and have done really well. So we're really grateful to have them in our community. As you might have heard, our prosecuting attorney has informed me that he is canceling our contract in terms of representing our department in abuse and neglect cases. This is, frankly, a very unusual circumstance for a community that is as large as ours. There are a number of counties in the state of Michigan who do not have prosecuting attorney representation, but they are much smaller counties. So for example, most of the counties in the Upper Peninsula they hire individual representation. But we in Jackson are considered a big 14 county. That means we're one of the top 14 counties in the state, and we are very busy in our abuse and neglect docket. We have 2 judges, Judge Rapley and Judge LaFlamme, and each of our 2 judges hold court 2 days a week. And so, losing this representation from the prosecutor's office is very concerning, and we will work through it. So we have begun reaching out to some local attorneys to find out if they're interested in contracting with us. I have some meetings set up. I actually have had some attorneys contact me because they have heard that this is now happening. And I also just want to say that Prosecutor Jarzinka Our contracts require a 30-day notice. So he provided me with the 30-day notice. And then the contracts also ask for an up to a 90-day transition time. So Prosecutor Jarzinka said that he is willing to assist us until January 1st. And so we are, again, beginning this work to try to get a contract in place as soon as possible. And Prosecutor Jarzinka will continue to work with us until the end of December.
I'll have a question about that when you're ready, Zoe.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So please forgive my ignorance on what the prosecuting attorney does for you. And what things that the Attorney General's office, perhaps, for example, could not do for you.
Yes. So the prosecuting attorney's office, we have a small contract with the prosecuting attorney's office. And they are our representation in all of the petitions that we file. So we file petitions for several different reasons. One is to ask for in-home jurisdiction around child abuse and neglect. One is to ask for children to be removed and placed in foster care. Again, child abuse and neglect. We also get involved less often, but around issues with juvenile justice or what used to be called delinquency. All of them are family court petitions that we file. And we also less often work with them around adult protective services cases, but I would say that's probably a bit more rare. So they review our petitions, they review them for legal language to make sure that our petitions are written correctly, that there's not any gaps in them. They approve whether or not we can file a petition with the court in terms of what is on the petition. We meet with them. They have office hours with us every Friday to review cases. They present our petitions to the court, and they represent us. So they are our attorney. They complete trials for us, jury trials and bench trials. And then they are with us in terms of court hearings. So they're very busy with us. At different points in time, we have had 2 assistant prosecutors working with us. And sometimes one assistant prosecutor. I will tell you that when it is one person, it tends to appear to be overwhelming because they are so busy. Does it
I guess
answer your question?
You're talking about what attorneys do, okay? And attorneys do lots of things.
Yes.
That's for sure. But the question, I suppose, is if our prosecuting attorney doesn't do it under contract with you, how would you get the work done? And it seems to me the first, the bullseye should be on the Attorney General's office.
Well, you would think that, and then some people ask that as well, but our attorney generals do not represent us in cases involving local petitions being filed. The only time that I'm aware of that our attorney generals represent us are in administrative hearings. So when somebody is placed on central registry and they request their name be removed, we have administrative hearings and they will represent us when that goes to trial. They do have a contract with Wayne County, the largest county in our state around child abuse and neglect, and do represent Wayne County DHHS. And then when the prosecutor's office has had conflicts, they would be a last resort option. So we still try to find a private attorney to represent us in those situations. And we've had those a couple of times. And I think at certain points, there's been a conversation about if we can't find an attorney, would they represent us? And I think that they would, but they are a last resort.
Okay, thank you. I interrupted your report.
That's okay. Thank you. So on to just some conversation around assistance payments. Our applications for food assistance and SER, which is state emergency relief, continue to be higher than normal over the last bit of time. State emergency relief is utility shutoffs, it's evictions, it's the sort of crisis reasons that folks need to come in and get assistance from my office. And our staff have commented that we have a lot of new people coming in. So people who have not had to apply for assistance before are coming in and brand new to our system. We utilized over $33,000, almost $34,000 in what we call direct supportive services this fiscal year. And this supports people in their employment needs. So if someone is able to get a job, but they need a uniform or steel-toed boots or certain kind of licenses or certifications, we can use our direct supportive services to help them in their needs. And then we also served 11 families with the following services, which I'd like to talk about because I think lots of folks don't know that we can support families in this way. We purchased 7 vehicles for families this year. We did 2 vehicle repairs, 1 vehicle insurance, and then we purchased plates and registration for a family. So oftentimes transportation is also a reason that folks can't get the right job or the job that they need. And so we can help to support that as well. And then with the recent storm and power outages, we wanted to make sure that everyone knew that people on food assistance can request a reissuance of their food benefits. So if their power was out and their food went bad, they can come in. If they come in within 10 days of the event, they fill out a special form and then they can get a food replacement affidavit based on their previous issuance amount. And I think lots of folks don't know that as well. We continue our race equity and DEI work within DHHS. So our anti-racism transformation team did our orientation together in July, and we began meeting last week for 8 half days together. And we are in the midst of that right now, meeting in the afternoons, being guided by Erase out of Kalamazoo. And finally, I always include an attachment that just shows the places where myself or my staff are engaged in the community so that you all as commissioners know the different ways that we're involved in our community. Any questions?
Questions for the DHHS? Commissioner Williams, please.
Good afternoon. Just a couple of questions. First, starting with the children's services. You mentioned that we have, or you had a goal of 25 new foster homes who didn't quite make that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Where did we land on that?
I believe that so we go until September 30th is
Mhm.
our date. And my understanding is that we're going to get to about 17
Okay.
this year.
Okay. And then the next year's goal you said was 13.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And then also under the your representation, obviously something very closely related to myself. But I was just curious if this was just solely a financial reason, or what was the reasoning behind ending the representation?
From the prosecutor's attorney, my understanding is that it was solely a financial reason.
Okay.
So there have been places around the state where the relationship gets bad and the prosecutor's office does not want to represent the department. That is not the case here at all. We have a
Mhm.
really great relationship with our prosecutor's office and have worked well together my entire time here for 9 years. My understanding it's simply related to staffing and budget.
Okay. Now the funding for this position, is this funded from the prosecutor's office, or is this a 50-50 split?
I think I'd probably have to get more information about that. I have been I've only known this for, 12 days. I found
okay.
out the day before. I found out on August 31st because that was
Okay.
when the 30-day notice went in. I believe that the contract that we have with the prosecutor's office, I'm going from memory and it might be completely wrong, but I think it's about $60,000. It does not pay for a full position. It
Mhm.
just assists in them being able to do their work. So
Okay.
that's what I know, but I'll get that. I can get that exact number and let you know.
That'd be helpful.
Mhm.
Then also, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. I missed one other question as it related to foster care. And I am very comfortable in sharing my story now as a person that grew up in the foster care system. I certainly understand the need for this, and I was curious, as it's always have been the story where more Black and brown foster homes are almost, in some cases, non-existent.
Correct.
Okay, and then to add that we're asking those individuals to host a teenager with varying issues it's very hard. So I'm curious as to what your office is doing as it relates to just sharing that message to the community. I know that a lot of times, the first, and help me if I'm wrong, but the first course of action is to talk with maybe family members, aunts, uncles, et cetera, and then kind of expand from there. But are we doing any like marketing in churches, African-American churches, or anything like that? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, thanks for asking. We actually are in the planning process to re-engage with some of our churches. So I think there was some work being done with that prior to COVID, and then COVID sort of set everything back.
Sure.
I talk about it everywhere I go. I'm also invited to JTV every month and talk about it on JTV, although I will admit that is not necessarily the demographic that we are looking to engage. I have a community resource coordinator who is also involved in lots of different groups in the community. And part of her goal is to talk to people about this work as well. Frankly, it's one of the large goals of our anti-racism transformation team.
Okay, yeah.
So we have many professionals on our team, some from within my office, from Community Action Agency, from United Way, Jackson Community Foundation. We have lots of different folks on the team. We also have some community members with lived experience. Some folks who have lived in foster care as you, or who have had their children removed and placed in foster care. And we hope that through this work, we'll also be able to get a larger, more appropriate message out to the community. It's a difficult message, right?
Sure.
One of the places that we go is the Southside Summerfest, and we have tables, right, and we give away information and talk about the need for foster parents. But I was very purposeful about not doing that presentation during Juneteenth because the foster care system has a history connected to slavery.
Yeah.
And so if we're celebrating the end of slavery, I don't want to also be talking about the connection with the foster care system necessarily.
Good idea.
So it's, it's trying to get this message out in a culturally sensitive manner as well. Is something that we're really paying attention to. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Yes.
Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Snell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to say that my good friend Darius here is asked all the questions I was going to ask. But I'd like to say, Zodi, I appreciate everything you do for the community and the sensitivities that are required in your job. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the report today. Chair will entertain a motion to receive the report. Thank you, Commissioner Snell, supported by Commissioner Bear. All in favor will please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. And now the medical care facility. Destiny, good to see you today.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so for our report today, I do want to correct a typo in the report that was submitted to you. So for the narrative summary of financials for July of 2022, the first line should read, the financials for July show a net loss of $355,000, which is greater than budget by $197,000. So those numbers there should just be swapped. I apologize for that. Okay, so I'm going to continue through with the financials. We had budgeted for net loss of $158,000 for the month of July. Revenue is less than budget by $106,000. And this was mainly attributed to reimbursement requests for COVID wages that have not yet been received. So there's currently a rule that's in place that allows for an additional wage increase for all frontline workers of $2.35 an hour. And we are reimbursed for that. So we submit the reimbursement request and that money comes back to us. We're just waiting on that to return to us, which put us a little bit behind budget for the revenue. For expenses were over budget by $91,000, and this was mainly due to the allocation of healthcare insurance expense. So overall, we're on track for our budgeted health insurance expenses for the year. This year, we made the decision to go to self-funding our health insurance. So that does create some more fluctuation month to month in the costs due to claims lag, but overall, that was going to be less costly and keep the same benefit amounts for our care partners overall for the year. So census averaged 154, which was 2 beds behind the budgeted census of 156. We had 21 admissions in July and 16 discharges. For the year to date, our revenue is behind budget by $490,000, but our expenses are under budget by $455,000 with a net change of negative $35,000. So we're saying fairly within in budget there, but we are still out of line just slightly there. And we're going to be monitoring that very closely, obviously, through this next couple months. So I did include the census graph for you in the report that I submitted. I also wanted to really emphasize that we continue to have 156 days of cash on hand. So that is the amount of days that we could operate with absolutely no revenue coming into the facility. In addition to that 156 days, that does not include money that's currently invested or that is in MOE funds. So that's approximately $3.8 million in additional funds that's not included in that 156 days. Again, we're not anticipating not to be receiving any revenue, but I think that that's a good barometer for the financial health of the facility. Just a little update on COVID-19. We have had no resident cases since our last report. We have had care partner cases on and off since our last report. So we'll fluctuate from maybe one care partner case, go a couple weeks, and maybe we'll have 2. So we are still seeing some cases of COVID amongst our care partners, but it's not in our resident population, which is good. So we continue to have in-person visitation, and that has continued without any interruption since November 15th of 2021. We don't anticipate seeing that be an issue going forward because the rules as far as visitation in nursing homes has changed, that barring visitation is not allowed unless determined by the local health department. We continue to test all of our care partners twice weekly for those that do not meet the current definition of up to date with vaccination. Some of you may recall that earlier this year, there was a vaccine mandate for all facilities that received funding from Medicare and Medicaid. So all of our staff either has an appropriate exemption or is vaccinated. So now it's just a matter of whether they meet the up-to-date standard with booster shots to determine whether they need to test or not. So as of the writing of this report, we had 106 residents that had tested positive since the beginning of the pandemic and 249 care partners that had tested positive since the beginning of the pandemic. Staffing continues to be our main area of concern. We continue to have multiple ads for new care partners across many different job boards, including Indeed, Glassdoor, Michigan Talent Bank, Handshake, which is a job board for many local colleges. We also have a radio ad that is running on iHeartRadio. We are seeing good results as far as clicks on the radio ad to go to our application. We're just not seeing that turning into applications. So that's one of the challenges that we're trying to overcome right now to figure out where that disconnect is. We did have a step 1 grievance from MNA, which is our RN union, regarding the eligibility for a care partner for benefits under the ACA. We still continue to have a step 2 grievance outstanding with MNA regarding the placement of bids, and that's been sitting outstanding for several months now. We don't anticipate that that's going to move forward. We have no outstanding grievances for AFSCME 2098A, which represents our LPNs and health unit coordinators, and no outstanding grievances for AFSCME 139, who represent our CNAs, dietary aides, and environmental services team. We continue to recognize our care partners through Facebook recognitions for their anniversary. And we did apply for a grant that was offered through the state of Michigan for funds for retention and recruitment for healthcare. That was due on the 31st of August. So we're just awaiting the response to our grant application to see if all of the grant money that we applied for was approved or only a portion. But we are cautiously optimistic that that could make a very big difference in our recruitment efforts. I did share the new care partners and departures for May, June, and July, because we did not talk about that in the last report. Currently, we are sitting at 36.07% turnover rate for the year, which right now is sitting at about what our annual average used to be pre-pandemic. So we are still seeing an issue with that, but we are trending better than last year. I also included graphs to share with you the CNA call-in and mandation totals. So mandation is mandatory overtime. That's required to make sure that we can meet all of the resident care needs that we have. So in July, we had 130 CNA call-ins and 31 mandations. And for nurses, we had 54 call-ins and 9 nurse mandations. The biggest piece of this is making sure that those numbers stay in line, that we're not mandating more than the number of call-ins, which shows a deeper issue with the schedule not being filled. For quality, I did include a new screenshot in this section of the report for you. So this is coming from the CMS Nursing Home Compare website. And this just ranks the facilities here in Jackson County based on the ratings in the CMS 5-star system. So as you can see in your report, we are currently rated at 4 stars overall and rated at number 2 in the county. We have 3 stars for quality and 4 stars for staffing. And we currently have 4 stars for our survey rating. We did have our annual survey last week, so we are anticipating receiving a report on that. There were a few concerns that we will need to correct. That's not unusual in any annual survey, but overall, not a bad survey from what they shared with us. I believe that is all that I have in the report itself. And then I also brought a little bit of a presentation regarding Medicaid, but any questions on the report itself?
The grant application for the grant application is for how much?
We requested $2.4 million.
Pretty significant. Would
Yes.
you let us know what occurs with that? If it's like before your next quarterly report, that's pretty significant.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Chair, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello. So you've operated now for 2 years under 150 on average for your patient load, from what I can see of your 2 graphs. My question would be, have we looked at, when we built the facility, we built it in a modular operation with the opportunity to mothball certain parts of the facility if we needed to. Have we looked at doing that and found out what that savings is and the corresponding reduction in staff and what that savings would be to get us closer to break even with our operations instead of keeping the whole facility open and keeping us at full staff level?
Yes, so we have looked at that. And currently the Renewal Center, which is the 16-bed rehab unit, which is located in the lower level of the facility, has been closed. And we closed that, I believe it was April of last year. And so we do reopen that occasionally if we have positive COVID resident cases, to use that as a quarantine area. But we have consolidated the building at this point to the point that we feel that we are able to. Otherwise, we won't have enough room for the residents that we do have if we look to bring one of those other neighborhoods offline. It has been a discussion that we've looked at, but the numbers don't add up when we look at that.
And I ask this question more for the public so they understand why we have to keep ourselves in the capacity that we're at of staffing and that type of stuff. So have we looked at where we can reduce our variable staff crewing and the possibility of maybe going with a 3-star rating for a year to get ourselves back financially where we belong and then work our way back up to the high quality rating?
So with the staffing rating itself is solely based on nursing care. So it's based only on CNAs and nurses. So going to a 3-star staffing level with that involves reducing the number of care providers that we have to the residents themselves. It's not necessarily including our housekeeping, dietary, or laundry teams, or any of the other more ancillary services. Now, that being said, we have had quite a reduction in the number of staff that we have due to attrition. And we have been cautious on replacing, especially in other departments, those positions. Our focus has mainly been on the nursing side of things. But we continue to see a higher staffing rate because our census is also lower. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I follow where you're going with this. So as a private sector company would, when we look at staffing level for care to customers, which would be our patients,
Mhm.
and we look at our ancillary services, again, which would be providing that. So then the last place we have to look at then would be administrative staff. If we looked at reductions within our administrative staff of maybe people doing dividing work up differently among your lead team or anything like that, is that possible?
Actually, we have done that. So for instance, our social work team, it had a director previously. Currently, we have left that director position unfilled, because that's something that we feel that we're able to manage through another means. We have a few nurse manager positions, that are currently open, that our director of nursing is taking on some additional responsibilities, as are some of our other nurse managers, to try and accommodate that. We have had some openings in other departments, such as our HR department. Previously, we had 3 full-time individuals, and we've reduced that down to 2. And that all happened through natural attrition. No one had to be laid off or lose their jobs. But at this point, I think we're running pretty close to as lean as we can, even on the administrative side.
Thank you for answering my questions.
No problem.
Further questions from committee members?
I do have a short presentation for you that I believe was attached to your packet, just talking about Medicaid and the impact that that has on JCMCF. I'm not sure if it's available to show on the screen, but I did you receive that? Oh,
We're
beautiful.
told that it's up on the screen, and I don't know that you can see it necessarily, but
Well, I will just read through it real quick.
okay.
So last month when I reported, we did talk about some of the statistics at the facility. And one of the statistics that I shared was that 85% of our residents are covered under Medicaid. So Medicaid is the primary payer source for our residents here at JCMCF. I wanted to explain how we get paid from Medicaid. So first, we submit a bill to Medicaid for each resident each month to indicate the number of days that they resided in the facility. That seems pretty straightforward. Where it gets complicated is how Medicaid determines how much they pay per resident. So the Medicaid rate is based on the amount of money spent in certain areas of the facility 2 years ago. So this means the Medicaid rate is different for each facility and changes from year to year. This also means that the Medicaid rate is always lagging behind inflation and current costs. And I think that this is a really critical area for everyone to have understanding of, because that's what makes budgeting so challenging in our sector. So our current Medicaid rate for 2022 is $277.24 per resident per day. So this is based off of the costs from 2019, and it received a 2.5% inflationary increase. The current rate of inflation from 2019 to 2022 is 11.96%. So just looking at that alone, you can see that there's quite a gap between what Medicaid is currently paying and what we're seeing in actual costs of goods today. So our Medicaid rate is $82.76 less a day than our private pay rate. which is based on last year's cost. So that equates to approximately $30,000 per resident per year. So that adds up fairly quickly. So that may make you ask, why should we take Medicaid? And really that comes down to what our mission is. So we were originally established as the county farm in 1839. The Social Welfare Act of 1939, also known as Public Act 280, established the county medical care facilities. So as a publicly supported facility, we were designed to care for the poor or medically indigent, and we've been doing so for the last 183 years. So Medicaid is that payer for those individuals. So there's a few snafus that have come in this whole process, including COVID. It's kind of created some snafus all over the world, right? So due to the increased costs of COVID and the influx of federal grant money, Michigan decided not to increase the Medicaid rate based on the costs for providing services in 2020 and 2021. So this is a big change, which also created some challenges with determining budgets going forward because it was outside of the norm. So this means that the Medicaid rate for 2022 and 2023 did not include the increase in costs caused by the pandemic. It's simply a 2.5% rate adjustment from 2019's cost. So then the question is, how are costs ever going to catch up in the future? So the 2024 Medicaid rate will be based on the cost of providing care for this year. The cost for providing care this year will also be used to reconcile the Medicaid rate that we were paid this year. This is the first time that the state has done this. So the state of Michigan will take the rate that they paid, the $277.24, and compare it to our actual costs this year and either pay or invoice us the difference between those rates. And this will repeat again in 2023. So this is where our opportunity presents itself. Because this is the first time that the state of Michigan will potentially be providing payment increase that will impact previous years, as well as increasing the current Medicaid rate, it's important that we continue to maintain the same level of spending for actual costs. It is a potentially type thing because ultimately, if we don't continue to pay the costs needed, we could end up having to pay back to the state. So if we reduced spending in 2022 or 2023, we could end up owing money back to the state of Michigan. Now to go back to some of the questions that I had been asked with reducing staff and things like that, we've been able to do that. And it has decreased costs, but because of the cost of inflation in other areas, the overall budgetary cost of expenses has not really decreased. So we still have the opportunity to have that rate made up in the future. So the overall point that I want to leave you with is that although it's very contrary to traditional business, continuing to spend is essential to maintaining a strong Medicaid rate to ensure that the costs of the future can be covered, which when you think of traditional business is completely opposite of everything you learned. But I wanted to share that with you and share those numbers with you. Is there any questions on that at all?
Questions? Yeah, it is counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yes, very much.
Well, in the meantime, I know you're trying to do the best you can with your staffing and with your census. So keep up that hard work, if you would, please. Thank you for that. And any further questions from committee members? Chair will entertain a motion to receive the report. Thank you, Commissioner Snell and Commissioner Alexander. All those in favor will please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Destiny.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Now the medical examiner report is next on the agenda. I don't know that we have a representative here. Okay, so the report is before you. Chair will entertain a motion to receive the report. Thank you, Commissioner Snell, Commissioner Williams, right? Commissioner Alexander, beg your pardon. Any questions? All those in favor will please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And now the Department on Aging, and I see Danielle back there. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So from my monthly report, I just wanted to provide an update with some elder abuse prevention grant money that we received. So the Region 2 Agency on Aging provides money to Lenawee, Hillsdale, and Jackson each year for the potential possibility of doing some kind of either an education event or kind of leaves it open really for the Department on Aging's to kind of choose what they're looking to do. And last year we did a senior shred day, and I think it was very successful. It does provide an opportunity for us to engage with older adults and caregivers in the community to provide resource information, and also provides a safe place that seniors can dispose of private information, whether that's their bank statements, financial statements, anything that they feel like, I really shouldn't throw this in the garbage. What am I going to do with it? And they just kind of keep and store it, or else they throw it away improperly. So this provides an opportunity for them to get rid of that information. It's a free event. Last year when we did it, we only were able to do that at the Crouch Senior Center. This year we were able to expand that to the Napoleon Township Hall. So we were thankful that the Township Hall let us use their parking area so that we can have Rapid Shred come in and help us to put on this event. And in my report, it talks about the dates being September 22nd and then also September 30th at the Crouch Senior Center. We're going to be going on JTV to help provide information to the public about the shred days and also to highlight the other senior services that we're offering. We're going to be putting ads into the Exponent, which is a great time of year. It seems like people pick that up more with a lot of the high school sports and information going on. So hopefully we'll engage more seniors that way during this time. And also 211 will do a community blast through there. So definitely a lot of opportunities for us to engage with the public, and hopefully you can help share that information as well. I wanted to highlight one of our program, which is our exercise services that we do. And there's a lot of different classes that we do as far as enhanced fitness, line dancing, moving for better balance, and fit after 50. So generally there's always some kind of exercise program that's happening at the Crouch Senior Center throughout the week. And you can see that most people generally do come regularly based on the respondents that we had with the survey. And I think one of the things to highlight on there is question number 3, which was, do the exercise classes here help you to live an active and independent life, which is really one of the main goals that we're trying to do in the community. And we had 57 people respond to that with a yes. And looking at some statistics with that class, with all the classes actually, from October through September, not through September, through August. I looked at September 12th, so I was trying to gauge how many were current. So we had 171 different people come to the classes that we offer. So I think that's a very good number of participants in the community. 75% of those that attend are female. The average age of somebody that participates in the class is 72. And the oldest participant that we have currently is 90 years old. I also listed some information just on what people's comments were. And I think the one that was most impactful to me was the very last comment that says it's a wonderful opportunity to exercise and meet new people. We share information and inspire each other. So I think that's just kind of the gist of it. I think people are able to connect with each other. They're able to build that natural supports and friendships, and also as a way to keep healthy. We're also in September highlighting some mindfulness classes with MSU. I think I mentioned that in probably a previous report. And just looking at the number of people that had signed up for the class that was going to begin today, that's an 8-week class. There's 23 seniors already signed up to participate in their Tai Chi class. So these are people that might be new that haven't been to our senior centers before. There was a couple that came in on Friday afternoon and wanted to sign up for the class. They hadn't been in our senior center before. So hopefully we were able to encourage them to come and participate in some other activities that we do. They didn't know we did lunch. They don't know all that we were play euchre or different things. So again, great opportunities for us to partner with MSU Extension and to expand classes that we offer and to help engage seniors. I just also wanted to highlight something with our grant funding and which also ends September 30th. We were recently received a new statement of contract award from Region 2. And again, they do those about quarterly. They give us updates on our funding, and in comparing that allocation from where we projected, there was a $49,595 increase. And speaking with Region 2, some of that was our carryover award from 2021, which was in the home delivered meal program of $36,326. But there was also an increase to the program of $7,246. The other largest area impacted was congregate meals, which also saw an increase. But in general, a lot of the programs, what we might see is within those funding streams that are allocated, there might be like a $1 or $5 kind of a change in what we budgeted, and we just kind of make those adjustments on our budgets. But I just wanted to report out about the increase that we had. And I just included some pictures at the bottom as far as senior activities.
Looks like one of them is at the fair.
There was one at the fair. That's one of the exercise classes. So again, I think they definitely had a good time going out there and showing what they do.
Yep. Questions for the Department on Aging? Hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion to receive the report. Thank you, Commissioner Bear and Commissioner Williams. Any questions? All those in favor will please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
And now we're up to the Health Department. We have a account clerk part-time position report to make. Thank you for being here. If you're going to make the report, go ahead and make it.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, thank you. Please remind us your name. I'm sorry.
Matthew Budd. I'm Deputy Health Officer. Kristen's at a conference with other health officers today. So this report is for a proposed part-time position for the account clerk for the Jackson County Health Department. We've had a casual in the position at 0.4 hours, but recently we had an opportunity for that account clerk to work more full-time in the sexual health immunization clinic. Of course, we're back to fully operational as we were pre-pandemic, which is with our sexual health and immunization clinics open 4 days a week to the public, and 1 day outreach, where we often go to places like the Aware Shelter or work with harm reduction to try to do sexual health testing and refer people to our immunization clinics. One of the opportunities we do have is to fully staff our immunization sexual health clerks full-time compared to a 0.6 in our sexual health office, and this would better let us serve our sexual health clients. The proposal here would be to allow for a 0.6 part-time account clerk, and that really would be to help fill in that gap and allow that sexual health clerk to work in sexual health instead of splitting their time.
And I think I saw in the report that you have the budget, the approved budget already ready for this particular position. Is that correct?
The additional cost would be covered by the local community stabilization authority and federal cost-based reimbursement funds.
Okay. So that's, is that a grant? Does that run out after a while, or what happens to that after that? No?
No, it does not.
So, in other words, it's not a situation where this year we have the money, but some future year you might not.
We don't anticipate that to be the
Okay.
case.
Questions for the Health Department? Commissioner Bear.
Good afternoon. Our next agenda item is shifting some responsibilities out of the health department. So will you not have staff that are currently busy performing work on SCSC ordinance that will now not have that responsibility anymore? Can these staff with reduced responsibility shift over and take these positions?
I'll be honest, I'm not too familiar with the responsibilities of the staff that are currently working on that ordinance. Perhaps that could be something that Don can cover in the next
Let's-
topic, if that would
Let's
be.
confine
okay.
the discussion to the agenda point here with respect to the part-time position.
It was exactly to the point. We're going to have responsibilities, work effort taken away from some staff. So can they not fill this gap without adding another 0.6 full-time employee?
I'm unsure of the classification of the employee too currently doing the soil erosion. So one of my first thoughts is it might be a different classification of an employee as well compared to AFSMI. But
Let's hear from Deb Kibitsky.
I'm sorry, I was just going to step in and help out a little bit. These are two different positions. One of them is an account clerk and the soil erosion is handled by the environmental health. So they're two different skill sets. They don't necessarily cross over. One of them requires accounting skills and the other one requires certification for the soil erosion program. So they're not necessarily skills that would intersect. In addition to any other union issues or those types of things, job classifications, pay might be different. So those things would be involved as well.
Well, in addition, aren't we we're moving something from the health department to another department? Right, okay. That's the next one, okay. So, anything further on the account clerk request?
no, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Commissioner Snell, please.
I'd like to move to send this to the full board with a recommendation to approve.
Very, very good. Supported by Commissioner Alexander, moved by Commissioner Snell. Any further discussion? Commissioner Williams, please.
I'm sorry, you may have mentioned this, and so if you did, I apologize. I was just scanning through your document here, okay, here it is, the funding source. Could you explain that a little bit?
Is it okay if I have our accountant explain exactly where those come from? Just
part of the, I'm Jonathan McGowan, in Finance Department. Part of the funding source is a community stabilization grant. This is
Oh,
the
okay.
annual grant that we received specifically for the health department for approximately just over $140,000. And we typically receive this in early December each year. So this is kind of something that's not part of our normal state of Michigan grants that we doesn't follow kind of the same procedures. It's kind of a separate source within the state of Michigan that has its own kind of board that does the approval each year, but it is a continuing grant, and we anticipate that it will be continuing. It was not going to end because it has been approved through legislature, and so it will continue moving forward. So this is a source of funding within
the grant.
the sexual health department, and that's kind of supplementing that, and that's where we anticipate that the additional funding is going to be for covering that position. So it's not going to really require any county resources.
Okay, and that's really where I was trying to get to, but as you were talking, I finally found the financial piece on there, so we're all set. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing
So,
further.
yeah, no, it's not a problem, that's just something that some additional funding source and that is definitely sufficient to cover. So.
Thank you. I think we have a motion on the floor. Do we? Okay. Going to ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Chair, Mr. Clerk, then please.
Commissioner Bear,
Yes.
Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Snell,
Yes.
Chairman Plesky.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. And now the next issue. Don, you taking this one?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Good afternoon, gentlemen
good afternoon. Thanks for being here.
and ladies. Before you, you have the staff report to transfer the soil erosion sedimentation control program from the Health Department, specifically Environmental Health Division, to Jackson County Department of Transportation. That would be effective if everything goes forward, January 1, 2023. Not our fiscal year. Okay, just make sure everybody's clear on that. So to make that happen, the county ordinance number 14, soil erosion and sedimentation control, Article 3 has to be amended to make that department change happen from Health Department to Department of Transportation. And that's what this staff report and request is basically all about. It is a simple change. We've already gotten Eagle approval for this, as well as the Jackson County Conservation District approval as per statute. So it is a simple change on your part. One thing you should take note of, because the effect of change would be January 1, and this is September. To make it official, because it is a change of ordinance, we might, and discuss it, you would probably know better than I, don't put it into the paper for official adoption until closer to January 1. If you do it 3 weeks from now, all of a sudden Jackson County Department of Transportation is the CEA and no longer the Health Department, but we're going to be continuing to do the program until January 1. Does that make sense? Okay. But we wanted to get this moving along in case there are any hiccups or anything along those lines. With that, are there any questions?
Very good. Thank you. Chair would like to get a motion on the floor before we have discussion.
I'll move that.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Snell and Commissioner Williams. Now questions to the motion. Commissioner Bear, please.
Good afternoon, Don. The cover letter here, analysis, part 3 analysis, B financial. There are no financial implications to Jackson County with this transfer. The fee schedule will be adjusted to cover the cost of the program with JC staff. How much is going to change in the fee schedule?
Well, okay, the fee schedule, that will be Jackson County Department of Transportation fee starting January 1. They will be reviewing their cost structure in association with the fees. There may be some changes at that point in time. Some of their salaries are different than our salaries. I have a staff of 6 sanitarians. They do the inspections, they do the plan reviews, they issue the permits. I also have 2 clerks, one of which has changed recently. So one of my 2 clerks is in training. I have been utilizing some casual work in my clerking area as well. So to get to your question, which kind of came out, in the previous agenda item. Yes, there will be some, less revenue for the Environmental Health Division. Earlier today, during the general government, I did actually put through some increased fees. I basically put a 5% plus or minus cost of living increase on all of, across the board on the majority of my fees. That will increase some of my revenue. Obviously, we also have some labor increases with the new contract that has just been approved. But I'm anticipating that revenue neutral with expenses and whatnot. I should be able to weather the storm, so to speak. I'll constantly review my division budget over the course of the next year as well. Concerning the clerks and your question earlier, with, when Ms. Kabuski talked about it. Yes, there are, the account clerk is a non-union position, I do believe, right? It is a union? Okay. But my EH clerks, you know, are also union as well. The cross training doesn't, you know, they are two different positions. They may be at the same grade level, but they are two different types of positions.
Okay, so the ultimate cost, the ultimate fee adjustment isn't really known at this time.
Not at this point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would, I mean, so now the revenue is going over to JC Dot, an Act 51 organization. I guess I'm going to ask Angela to kind of nod her head to my questions. I hope you can do that, Angela. I see that in the staff report, the health department and JC Dot are both nodding their heads in agreement with this proposed change. But there will be a situation where the revenues and the expenses may not actually match up. And I don't know what the budget is. I guess the question is whether doing this work from your perspective will impair your Act 51 responsibilities.
So the fee schedule, it's not on the county fee schedule that was at the last meeting. For the soil erosion program, it's on their application, and that's how it's always been approved here. So we're currently going through that. But basically, they get a cash bond and it covers itself. So right now they have a small fee. It varies depending on the development. And then they have a cash bond that they charge their time to, so that they are covered for the entire permit. So when we say we're reviewing the fee schedule, it's to make sure that that initial fee amount covers the time that our staff has to do to issue that permit. But ultimately it will be a self-funded program. It has to be. It should have been at the health department. It usually broke close to even. At our agency, you're correct in the fact that we're funded by the gas tax. So we will have to make sure that it's a self-funded program. But I feel confident the way they have it set up, that it will be, because we can just pull from that cash bond.
Good. Further questions for either JC Dot or the health department? Hearing none, all in favor of moving this on to the full board will please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, Don.
Thank you very much.
And now we have a health department budget amendment, and Jonathan.
Thank you. Since our budget amendment from a couple of months ago, I mean, there's nothing like really major, but kind of what I'm seeing more with this one is in a lot of cases, we're kind of shifting some of the funds over. And one example of that would be the top program or taking pride in prevention. And the reason for that change is we shifted some of the summer program expenses were previously under contractual services, and now they've been reclassified as seasonal or casual employees. And so we shifted 12,000 from contractual services into casual wages, and that to just kind of reflect that change. So essentially it's budget neutral. It's just kind of shifting a category to recognize this is the first year that we considered the students and that sort of thing that are involved in the summer programs to seasonal employees as opposed to casual, and which we work closely with HR to make sure that we're giving the correct classification for those seasonal employees. And so there's a few other that are similar to that, where we're just shifting from maybe one category to another. Really the big change is that we have a new program that we at the time of the previous budget amendment that we had, the contract was not approved yet on it, so we were not able to include that in that budget amendment as the child oral health program. So it's a new program for preschool children that prior to entering into school for health dental screenings. And obviously, we don't at the health department have any kind of a dental program, so we've kind of partnered with Smiles on Wheels, and so that's the reason that most of that is under contractual, because that we're kind of contracting with Smiles on Wheels, and so we've entered into an agreement with them to provide those kinds of services. But this is a brand new grant in the amount of $62,522. So if you look on the revenue side of it, that'll show that amount. I believe that program began on July 1st.
Very good, Jonathan. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the budget amendment and move it on to the full board. Thank you, Commissioner Alexander and Commissioner Williams. Any further questions? Commissioner Bear, please.
These changes we do frequently. Budgets are best guess. And according to your write up here, your balance, you're shifting to what was actual.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, the actual figures that we know now, are these known figures reflected in the 2023 budget?
To the best of my knowledge, and again, there was some of the adjustments that are being made here, then what we're trying to do is reflect that also in the 2023. So when it's putting together 2023 budget information, I'm kind of taking into account the fact that, okay, for taking pride in prevention, that's no longer going to be considered contractual. So I'm trying to move that up into the wages section of the 2023 budget. But this was something that kind of occurred during the year. So once we got past the summer program, then we had a better gauge of kind of what the actual expenses were on the seasonal employees.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. And any further questions? All in favor of the motion will please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Well done. And now on to the Health Department's monthly report. And musical chairs continue. Thank you. I appreciate all three of you for being here today.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to come back and present the report. Again, Matthew Budd stepping in for Kristen Pluta, who's out today at a conference. So the monthly report for August of 2020 from the Health Department. Looking first, I'm just going to go very quickly. Any questions? If you want me to elaborate further, let me know. But in respect for your time, I'll try to get through this relatively quickly. Community health education promotion update. Our programs are in full swing, and that includes MIHP, which is our maternal infant health program, our child special health care services, and lead services. Of note, we had 6 lead education and lead abatement visits this month. This is a bit of a change. We were very slow throughout the winter and spring. CDC updated their guidance looking at lead and child blood levels here recently. And with that change from 5 milligrams per deciliter of blood, it's now 3.5. It's allowing us to look for smaller traces of blood in child's bloodstream. If somebody does screen positive for high lead blood level, we're able to go to their home, talk to them about where their child might be coming into contact with lead. Often in older homes, it's window seals that are cracking, some of that paint, there's some lead dust, and we can give them opportunities to kind of clean some of that lead exposure away. So those are those lead service visits that we're able to do. Also highlighting our child special healthcare services program. That's a long continuing program here in Michigan. That's a mandated essential service for the health department. We see about 750 families in our county each year. And there's about 2,000 qualifying health conditions that allow case management for those families. So that's what that child special healthcare services does. It's really a referral program. Next program, we have health education. Our Empowering Youth Today program is starting back in the schools in September. We work with several schools, mostly middle schools in Jackson Public. Moving on, we have our teen outreach program, top in TPPI. So those are really aimed at our high school student populations. That begins again, of course, this September. Several schools, including JPS and Western Career Prep. Moving on, we have medical marijuana education grant. So we've distributed about 200 lock bags to families. People are eligible if they're 21 and older and utilize marijuana, and that's funded through medical marijuana funding throughout the state. We're also partnering with Henry Ford to bring education to dispensaries so that we can bring information, lockbox safety stuff to the dispensaries here in town. Hearing and vision, our programs are back getting started in the schools this summer, this spring. That is a program that, of course, was suffering a little bit and during the pandemic because we were hard pressed to get into the schools. WIC program, we celebrated World Breastfeeding Month in August. We held our first breastfeeding event, which was a huge success. We had over 20 families come for what's called the Big Latch. So all these breastfeeding moms enrolled in WIC came and breastfed together during our Project Fresh event. We also received 300 booklets that are eligible to be used at community farmers markets. So that's more money coming into our community farmers markets this year. We talked about Project Fresh, so I'll move on to sexual health. As I know we've reiterated, STIs are on the rise here in Jackson and really in Michigan too. Chlamydia, gonorrhea rates are increasing. We're looking at working with our community. There's a lot of stigma, of course. A lot of people aren't sure what to do if they want to come in, but we're trying to bring people into our clinic, screening, assessing often, and also working with our partners here in the community too. One of the objectives of the health department is to work with all providers that do sexual health screening to make sure we're doing everything we need to do. Communicable disease, I will state that as of late August, we do actually have a second positive monkeypox case. We're working with Henry Ford, making sure treatments available, screenings available, providers know what to do in case someone comes in with suspected of having monkeypox. Our immunization clinic, we're back in full swing for childhood immunizations coming in to start of the school year. Don, you want me just to do a very quick update for environmental health? So our food program, there is a leave of absence, but we're very busy. So we've had 30 plan reviews and generally in a full year, we have somewhere between 17 and 27 plan reviews come in. Looking ahead, this one here. So I think one of the important things is we have a letter of commitment to support a grant for the Upper Grand River Watershed Alliance, looking at small stream in Rives Township, identifying source of E. coli. Blackman Township, so during Project Fresh, our WIC event, we also distributed lead filters for people's water in their home. And this was for WIC eligible families in Blackman Township. There was a little bit of elevated blood level. So we reached out to those families. We were able to distribute water filters during our event there, as well as radon test kits. And I think we distributed over 100 test kits at our Project Fresh events here in August. We also have a couple events coming up. It's National Preparedness Month and Food Safety Education Month. So we're going to be on JTV and we're spreading out information on our social media, giving people information on how they can be prepared.
Very good. Questions for Matthew? Good job. We appreciate you guys going through and putting up with us. You guys are very dedicated and we appreciate the work. Commissioner Bear, please.
Under the community health education and promotion, health education, the Empowering Youth Today, can you forward me a copy of whatever that information was that was presented to these students?
Absolutely, I can.
Thank you.
The administrator has a question.
The Rives Township, that E. coli contamination, says it's been going on since the early 2000s. And we haven't figured out where whose outhouse it's coming from or what's the deal?
Okay. Yeah, that is a project that got started probably 2 or 3 years prior to my coming here. Believe there were more than one source. Okay, so there were some homes tied into the storm drains, okay, that went into Elbro Creek. But there's also a agricultural component. Then there's natural background from wildlife and what have you. So the levels have come down since 10, 12, 15 years ago, but they haven't come down enough to lift the what's called a TMDL, TMDL, total monitoring detection level. And so that is what this creek is under. It's Eagle. And so this, we've been trying to get some grants. It's kind of through that Upper Grand River Watershed Alliance group. And so last year's grant request was not approved. We're making a second effort. It's a 319 grant. Last year was a different grant program. So we shall see. We wrote a letter of support. We would be involved in doing some monitoring of the creek, not actually taking the samples, but finding some sources such as a septic system. We would respond to that individual landowner. So.
Have you, I'm just curious, because as city manager, we used to dye test.
Right. And we can still do that. We have dye. We do occasionally do that when we have a suspect home and whatnot. And then well, most of the time you have to come back day after day after day to let the dye get through the system. The rare occasion is when it's very fast. You don't ever really want to see that.
Okay, thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to accept the Health Department's report. Thank you, Commissioner Alexander and Commissioner Snell. Any further questions? All those in favor will please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And now to the claims. Chair will entertain a motion to pay the claims. Thank you, Commissioner Snell and Commissioner Williams. Any questions? All those in favor will please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And please take note of the DHHS minutes at item 5B and the reporting schedule for next month, where we have the Department of Aging, the Health Department, R2 AAA, Lifeways, and Michigan Works. We're now up to public comment. And any public comment? Any public comment at all? Public comment is now closed. Committee member comments. Any committee member comments today? Commissioner Bear, please.
The August Human Services Committee reporting schedule indicated that MSUE would be here today. They weren't on the agenda, so can they be rescheduled to come back in October?
I will ask the administrator's office to look into that for next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion of adjournment. Thank you. And all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We stand adjourned.